Kielder 40 for Raidable Crest Titans.
Last time out in the Britpart British Cross Country Championship, it was a close battle on the Welsh stages at Sweet Lamb, with Adrian Marfell, Justin Birchall and Richard Kershaw all experiencing their own issues throughout the weekend. But it would be victory in the end for Marfell after he overcame the day one issues that had seen him put in such big efforts and some great times on the second day for that fight back. The third event of the championship then in this shortened season sees the crews head north for a new challenge, the fast and unforgiving forest stages in Kielder, as the rally boys and girls know it. And with plenty to get through, let's get straight onto that stage and into the action. With plenty of confidence then, pretty much brimming over from the win last time out, it would be the lead once again here for Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman, setting some fastest times right from the start, and what would turn out to be the fastest time of the event as well on run 4. Little would they know it now. For Justin Birchall and Andy Powell, it would be second. The times on the first 3 runs of the day were equal with Marfell, but it would be that 4th run time, meaning they were second place on the timesheets at the end of the opening day. Everything had gone well so far for Mark Jacks and Simon Kerfoot here in Kielder so far. They lead the way in Class 10 as well as being in the podium positions right from the outset. In a chasing position nonetheless, one that they could fight from. The pair enjoying the fast flowing course. And it would be a strong start for this man, Dave Hooper. Anthony Hooper alongside, putting in some good times, ending the day 4th place, leading the way in Class 9, and clearly, as you can see, on the pace right from the off. It's always good to see who puts in a weekend entry, and as we've come to expect, there were a few to look at. Mixing it with the top of the leaderboard at this round would be Johnny Drysdale and Tony Ray, up to 5th place overall, 2nd in Class 10 now. Just imagine if they'd entered the championship. No problems to report either for Carl Duffield and Martin Wellick. They lead the way in Class 11 at the end of the opening day from 6th on the leaderboard. And there'd be a new co-driver for Rob Boole this weekend. Peter King alongside as his usual navigator was away. They were loving the fast stages as well, ending the day 7th overall, 3rd in Class 8. Surely more to come from this pair. And if you wondered where he was, times were coming down run by run for this man, Phil Bayliss. Lance Murphin alongside. They were probably wanting to be a little higher overall, and we'd maybe expect them to be in the class as well, but for now they're 8th place overall and 3rd in class would be good going. Meanwhile, things were not going exactly to plan for Scott Whitmore and Tim Farndon. They have problems with the clutch on the very first run of the event. Thankfully, it doesn't lose them enough time to put them down the leaderboard any more than they would have been. And rounding out the top 10 now would be Wyn Williams and Kevin Stubbs. A puncture on the 2nd run of the day, losing them some valuable time, but the crucial part is they're still going. This championship and this course are both tough, and this weekend would see its fair share of retirements and problems, the first of which being for Richard and Mason Kershaw. The alternator belt breaking on run 1, putting them out of the running, but the times were good once it had been fixed. Kershaw may still be going even though he was out of the top of our leaderboard, but for Ryan and Darren Cook, it would be the end of their event on run 3. They break a fan belt on the 2nd run, having to stop, but worse would be to come when they slowly and frustratingly rolled into a ditch on the 3rd run of the day. This first day of what was turning out to be pretty grueling competition would also see us lose Aston Cox back out in the old car and feeling good, right up until the point that the engine let go and forced a retirement, that is. Gordon Monaghan and Stephen Matthews were back out this weekend, sadly. Not for long though. 2 runs in, they would add to the ever-expanding retirement list. You knew this about Killer Kielder, didn't you? Joining them on that list would be Warren Roper and Alec Fern, also coming to an end after 2 runs. All that attrition, shall we have a look at some of those who were still going then? It would be the Class 18 lead for Steve Hill and Ryan Exley. They lie just outside our top 10 in 11th. George and Jacqueline Bryson would have problems before the start, the car cutting out on the recce lap. Worse was to come though when the wiring loom caught fire while trying to repair the car. Thankfully, they had the help of previous navigator Wallis McKay to help get the car fixed and back out and get out some runs to finish the day. In Class 7, we see Benjamin and Rachel Clay leading the way, enjoying the challenge of the faster tracks here in Kielder as well. Nick Pritchard, meanwhile, would be on his own in the car this weekend, making the job of remembering the course that little bit harder. But of course, it's a lighter way of doing things. He ends the day with first in Class 12, 14th overall, so it was certainly working for him. In Class 3, it would be the lead for Ed Cobley and John Tomley, actually on exactly the same time as Pritchard up ahead. Problems, though, on the 4th run of the event were to come for Martin Cox and Stuart Delph. That would see them slip down the results. They'd briefly come out on day 2, but that would be short-lived, and it would end in retirement. For John Rennie and Ian Gray, it would be second in Class 3 at this stage. They were having problems of their own though, the front prop shaft breaking off on the first run, around 3 miles from the finish as well, so excruciating. Things had started well at least for Jordan Aldbury and Phil Kerfoot. There would be power steering problems though to contend with on the last run of the day. It would take some work for the service crew to get that car fixed ahead of day 2. Earning themselves a few well-deserved beers, they still end the day with second in Class 9 and all to fight for and get that car fixed and back out on the course for. For David Brose and Colin Stevenson, it would be 3rd place in Class 3 as well as 21st overall. Rebecca Clarkson would have a new navigator for this weekend, Tim Henry stepping in. Things were going well, but they were having some problems with the brakes. Thankfully, they'd have time to get those looked at and repaired ahead of day 2. Just behind Clarkson on the overall leaderboard would be Jasmine Philpott and Pete Widdup. A close battle developing between the female drivers, just 6 seconds between them at the end of the day. For Richard Green and Richard Griffiths, it would be second in the class. A broken wire causing the engine to misfire halfway through the day. That'd need looking at overnight. It would be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Dave and Jack Nutter would be another of the weekend entries this weekend, ending the event with second in Class 18, as well as 28th overall. A puncture on the first run of the day wasn't going to help the overall times, it's fair to say, for Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell. Thankfully, that would be the last of their problems for the day, though. They put in some good times to lie 3rd in Class 9. Jade Pavley and Hannah Davison will be out again in the Excite Team GB Mitsubishi. The course this weekend suited much more to the car. The team had travelled all the way from Dorset to be here this weekend. It was probably fair to say that the weekend hadn't gone to plan so far for Paul Rowlands and Neil Lloyd. A maximum on run 3, putting them way down the order. And things were not much better in the other car either. The maximums on 2 of the 4 runs on the first day of competition. There was bad luck for Jason Rowlands as well. The times were good when things were going well, but that wasn't always the case. A maximum on run 2, putting an end to any hope of a good result. He wouldn't make it out for day 2 either. Mark Allard and Daniel Jones, though, would be one of many to sample the Kielder ditches, ending up in 1 and needing recovery, meaning they end the day with 3rd in Class 18 and down the results from where they surely would have wanted or planned to have been. And a mistake on the first run of the day would put Ocean Riley and Philip Richards down the order. They ended up in a ditch as well, getting a maximum for their efforts as well. The first day then had been pretty grueling. It hadn't finished handing out its retirements either. We'd lose Richard Cooper and Adam Turner. The transmission issues right from the first run would gradually get worse, the pair calling it a day to save any more damage to the car. We'd also lose Michael Wilson and Ian Letman, the pair retiring on the second run of the day when the clutch broke. Mike Faulkner and Peter Foy wouldn't quite make it even that far, retiring after the first run with a few issues that they didn't want getting any worse by carrying on. And for Tim Philpott and Roland Hill, they wouldn't even make it past a camera under their own steam, being towed out of the course after retiring not far from the start line. So an action-packed and pretty attrition-filled opening day here in Kielder. Here is a reminder of how those results look for those who were still in the running. We're on to the second day then for those who had made it, and there would be no change at the top of our leaderboard. Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman continue to hold on to that lead. Of course, confidence still brimming from the last round victory. In fact, with many things changing behind them, they would, if anything, extend that to what was looking like a comfortable margin. Second place now, Mark Jacks and Simon Kerfoot. There may not have been many off-road sections for the crews to really cut their teeth on this weekend, but the course was still proving to be a big challenge to the cars and crews. Just ask any rally driver about Kielder. They lead the way in Class 10 as well. Things were still going well meanwhile for Dave and Anthony Hooper. They'd moved up to third overall now, still leading the way in Class 9. They'd get held up slightly before being first to arrive at a stranded car, but thankfully they were still going strong themselves, no harm done. And in case you were wondering, that stranded car would be Justin Birchall and Andy Powell. They had a fire which put them out of second place on the first run of the day. Carl Duffield and Martin Wellock continue to lead the way in Class 11. A good day yesterday was looking like it could potentially be a good result overall as well. And things were still going well for Johnny Drysdale and Tony Ray, mixing it with the regulars to lie in 5th place overall. Rob Bull and Peter King were struggling with some of the tighter chicanes, having to shunt around some of them, but they were still going well, lying 6th on the overall leaderboard. Things were still looking much the same for Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphy, rounding out the top of Class 10 as well as with 7th place on that overall leaderboard. Some strong pace still as well from Scott Whitmore and Tim Farndon. Learning the new car on this faster course, they end the morning 8th overall, 3rd in class. For Wyn Williams and Kevin Stubbs, it would be 9th, the first time with Kevin in the co-driver's seat. So it was taking some getting used to, and these are fast roads to be getting used to a new co-driver. They were up to speed though with each other, and it was showing. Rounding out our all-important top 10 now would be Nick Pritchard. A couple of issues to report though, including losing 4th gear. Not ideal, this is a fast course, but he was still pushing on to try and improve on that overall position. Let's move outside the top 10 then. It would be Class 18 and the lead for Steve Hill and Ryan Exley. This event, one that he really wanted to do, and it wasn't disappointing inside that car. No problems for Benjamin and Rachel Clay at this stage. The pair still leading the way in Class 7 as well. And there's no change in Class 3, as Ed Cobley and John Tomley still lead the way, lying in 15th place. Second in that class behind Cobley would be David Brose and Colin Stevenson. Second in Class 3, 17th place overall. problems early on for Jordan Oldbury and Phil Kerfoot as they blow the front diff on the first run of the day. And with no spare, they'd be thankful at least for the help of a fellow competitor to get them up and running again. Unfortunately though, we lose Rebecca Clarkson and Tim Henry, a stone breaking the alternator belt and the main oil pipe. Before that though, things had been going well. They got their times down to under 13 minutes. Those problems earlier on though had been fixed for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths, and they were running much better on day 2, second in class 7 at this stage as well. This weekend was looking like fun for Pat and Becky Masters, finally getting to use 5th gear in parts of the course. The first time this season, in fact. They end the morning 3rd in Class 3. There's no change on that leaderboard for Dave and Jack Nutter. They still remain 2nd in Class 18 at this stage. And there would be a cautious start to day 2 for Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell after a downpour of rain the night before. The car wasn't suited to the fast course though and was proving to be a bit twitchy. The plan was still on track for Jade Pavley and Hannah Davison. Those repairs from the previous round, remember that, they were standing up well. There wasn't much that they'd needed to do to the car after all. But there's frustration for Mark Allard and Daniel Jones. They suffer a blown gearbox on the 2nd run of the day. So we have just a couple of runs remaining here in Kielder. But as we've seen so far, just about anything could happen. Here's a reminder of those overall results as they look now. For those who have made it this far then, we're on to the final runs of the event. There'll be no issues to report for Jade Pavley and Hannah Davison. They stay out of trouble this time around and out of those ditches crucially to end the event with the Class 2 win. The times on day 2 had been good for Ocean Riley and Philip Richards as well. Sadly, the damage had already been done with those maximums on the opening day. Jonathan Damrell and Nick Blundell, meanwhile, will be one of the lucky few to have visited one of the ditches and to have come out of the other side. They end the event 3rd in Class 9, 25th overall. And Damrell was not the only one to have done that either. Dave and Jack Nutter having a bit of a scary moment and ending up briefly off the road as well. They end the event though 2nd in Class 18. And they say things come in threes, as we see Pat and Becky Masters also having their own moment when they put the Freelander into the ditch. Thankfully for them, coming out again and continuing to 3rd in Class 3. No ditches to report. Alan Thomas and Michael Kerfoot will be pleased to say. It would be 22nd overall, 8th in the class by the finish. There'd be disappointment though for Phil Bayliss and Lance Murphy. They roll the car on the final run of the event, missing out on what could have been a pretty good result from this weekend when they dropped down to 21st overall. No ditches, rolls, or just about anything else though for Richard Green and Richard Griffiths. They keep the car out of those killer Kielder ditches to end the event 2nd in Class 7, 20th overall. A bit of a bad time on the first run of the event had put Toby Jefferson and Phil Ibbotson down the order. The rest of the weekend would all be about having some fun. They do though end the event 18th overall, 6th in the class. Those earlier problems had meant that Jordan Oldbury and Phil Kerfoot would get the car fixed late on. They'd have to do all of their runs back to back in the final hour. They get to the end though, crucially taking 2nd in Class 9 and a good haul of points. There's no change in Class 3 though. David Brose and Colin Stevenson holding on to that position. That 2nd place to the finish, something they'd be pretty pleased with after the attrition out there on the course today. But taking that class win after holding on to the lead all weekend will be Ed Cobley and John Tomlin. A strong result for the pair. Confidence building as they go. For Stephen Smith and John Griffiths, meanwhile, it would be 4th in Class 10 to end a battle-strewn weekend. ending the event 14th place on our leaderboard. Martin James and Matt Lowe make the long trip up from Wales this weekend, and it will be well worth their time as well doing so, ending the event 13th place overall and really enjoying the fast-flowing course. There'd be plenty of frustration out there from those getting penalties for hitting the chicanes this weekend, and suffering the most with that would be Carl Duffield and Martin Wellock. 11 minutes of penalties in total would see them finish the event 12th place overall. Not too bad considering. No such problems for Benjamin and Rachel Clay though. They take that Class 7 victory. They'd held the place all weekend and they come out with a strong result overall in 11th. So on we go to the top 10, and it will be 10th place overall for Steve Hill and Ryan Exley, taking the Class 18 victory as well in the process. Tracking issues on day 2 would be some interesting handling and some no doubt pretty scary moments for George and Jacqueline Bryson. They had to replace the tyres towards the end of the event as they were looking a little worn as a result. And it was only at the finish that they realised they were the wrong size. Thankfully for them, it didn't stop them finishing. They take 9th place overall. And it would end up being a pretty good result this weekend for Nick Pritchard, taking the Class 12 victory as well as 8th overall. Plenty of fun in that buggy, and thankfully for him, finding his way around without a navigator pretty well. Another strong result this weekend for Scott Whitmore and Tim Farndon. They were getting a good feeling in the car now. 7th place would be a great end to the event, as well as 3rd in Class 8. And for Johnny Drysdale and Tony Ray, it will be 3rd in Class 10. The pair ending the event 6th place on the leaderboard. Now, a last-minute change of co-driver hadn't seemed to be an issue in the end for Wyn Williams. Kevin Stubbs in that co-driver's seat. A great result for the pair. They finished 2nd in Class 10, 5th place overall. Pretty impressive. And after what had been a pretty up and down season so far, hadn't it? It would be a welcomed finish for Rob Boole and Peter King. Not only a finish, but the pair just miss out on our podium positions as well. 2nd in Class 8, 4th place overall. We're on to those hard-fought podium positions then. It would be a great drive for Dave and Anthony Hooper, seeing them rounding out the top of our results. The pair also taking the Class 9 honours in the process. Hopefully their speed will continue into the final round in Wales and we will be treated to some spectacle out there on the course. Mark Jacks and Simon Kerfoot will be making up for not having the best of starts to their season. They end the event 2nd place overall, taking the Class 10 victory as well after what had been a pretty strong showing this weekend here in Kielder. But taking their 2nd victory in as many events would be the very impressive Adrian Marfell and Paul Bartleman. Not putting a foot run this weekend. This result puts them in a good position going into the final round, but of course, as we have seen, anything can happen and the fight will almost certainly be on in that final round of the championship. So with an attrition-strewn event here in Kielder, the leaderboard at the end of this weekend looks like this. Phew. Next up then, our crews head to Wales and to Walters Arena, a popular venue with a great mix of conditions for the crews. Heading to this time of the year, the weather conditions will surely play a part as well. The final round of the season isn't going to be an easy one for anyone by any stretch of the imagination, and we'll see you there.